The shooting range. In this episode, Pages of History, how the Swedish engineers changed their engines mid-flight. Map guide, tactics on the Normandy map. And Metal Beasts, the famous Israeli MBT. As promised, today we'll tell you about another Strategist event reward. Please welcome the Israeli main battle tank, the Merkava Mark III-D, found in the American tech tree at BR 10.3. The engineers did a good job at upgrading the model, improving its performance significantly. The main addition of this new model is the 120mm gun, with elevation angles between -7 and +20 degrees. The tank also has one large caliber machine gun and 3 more 7.62mm MGs. A thermal sight will help the gunner aim, and there are as much as 3 options to hide the tank in smokes. There are smoke launchers, an ESS, and a special mortar in the turret that shoots smoke bombs. Moreover, the tank can also detect enemy radar thanks to 2 sensors in the rear of the turret and 1 above the gun base. The engine compartment of this tank is in the front, next to the driver. The other 3 crew members are in the turret, as is tradition. On the battlefield, the Merkava is not the most agile machine. However, its gun has the M322 APF SDS with the best penetration rating in the game, same as the Italian Ariete and the Centauro, as well as the Swedish CV90120. Thanks to such a powerful round, the Israeli MBT can equally be efficient at any distance, while the radar warning receiver will give you a sign that there's an enemy coming at you from a certain direction before you see them. Elevation angles are great for most situations, with the exception of especially high slopes, where you might experience some difficulties. As for urban skirmishes, that's where the Merkava feels at home. Good turret rotation speed means fast reaction against maneuverable enemies, and smoke grenades provide you with an opportunity to retreat at any time. Don't think that its armor is impenetrable, though. An experienced enemy will always find a vulnerability. Nevertheless, thanks to a spacious hull, the engine compartment being in the front, and having 4 crew members, the Merkava can sustain several hull breaches and still make it back to battle after a repair. Also, every fuel tank is located in a separate compartment, so there's no fire hazard in case of damage. And even if there is a fire, say after the enemy hits your engine, the ammo is still safely hidden behind fireproof barriers. Thanks to them, it can last a whole minute before catching fire. All these engineering solutions greatly improve the machine's survivability. At the beginning of the battle, we recommend that you choose one of the central directions of attack. Stay in the second line and move forward with no rush, since you can destroy most tanks even from the front. And if you meet with heavy odds, don't hesitate to use your smokes and retreat into safety to wait for some backup. We're already used to Swedes surprising us with almost every piece of tech we talk about. What did they have in store for us this time? Wait, it's just a twin-boom monoplane fighter with a pushing rotor? But what's so unique about that? The idea of such a machine had been around for a long time, as engineers use non-standard designs in the pursuit for speed quite often. True, very few of those non-standard planes went into production for various reasons, and the Swedish got lucky enough that their military liked a fighter with such a design, and they also had the time to polish it for as long as they needed. But still, that's not very impressive. So what else is new? The German Daimler-Benz engines? Well, okay, they were taken straight from the Messerschmitt 109 and weren't even licensed, as the warring Germany just supplied them to the neutral Sweden. That seems unusual, but on the other hand, the Germans would have been happy to give even more for the precious Swedish nickel. Anything else? Right, an ejectable pilot seat. Well, even here it's not certain that the Swedes were the first to have it. After all, the wondrous Saab J-21 participated in no wars and never had a chance to compete with the Axis or Allies fighters, so its design process was almost unnoticed by the aviation giants. However, by the time the war ended, the world of aviation had entered the jet era, which made even the best piston fighters obsolete. All the engineers knew the simple truth. The new era engines required completely new machines designed from scratch. The only exception known to us is the work of the Yakovlev design team in the USSR, who used aerodynamic solutions from the piston Yak-3 to create the Yak-15, which became some sort of transition vehicle between the past and the future. And even then, the number of changes was so immense that it would be impossible to say that the first Soviet jet plane was simply a remotorized piston engine one. Now, what was Sweden doing at the time? Sweden was just receiving the first de Havilland Vampire jets, which were twin-boom aircraft. Wait, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? That's when the Swedish engineers had a bright idea. Why don't we simply replace the piston engine on the J-21 with a turbojet engine? One little thing should be noted, though. At the time, the Saab factories were getting ready to launch a licensed production of the very same Vampire planes, but they sort of forgot to let the British know about their plans to remotorize the J-21. What they didn't forget, though, was to use everything they learned from the Vampire, including a new tail section with a higher elevator placement to move it out of the jet exhaust's way. The rest was simple enough. Just install the new engine, add a couple of air intakes, and slap on some fairings, good to go. It's hard to describe the look of surprise on the faces of de Havilland specialists when they realized what had happened right under their noses. Wait, we weren't aware that was something a person could do. The test airfield now had an unusual pushing rotor fighter with a newly not piston engine, flying right beside the British Vampire. And though the J-21R had inferior armament, flight range, and maximum speed compared to the British brother from another mother, its flight performance was just as good. The Swedish Air Force obviously didn't consider the jet modification of their unusual fighter to be a full replacement for the Vampire. But it wasn't simply a transition vehicle either. Its task was to facilitate pilots' retraining for jet fighters and, later, to become an auxiliary multi-role fighter-bomber. After all, the missile and bomb capacity of its piston engine predecessor was perfect for that. And while the British, and the world, specialists were still shocked from what they'd seen, the Swedes finished them off with the following question. While we're at it, why don't we install a turbojet engine on the Saab 18 bomber as well? And no, they didn't get to it, but only because they remembered to ask another important question. What for? There was no one left to bomb. The war was over. Today, we'll talk about possible tactics on sunny Normandy map. Let's not waste any time and go straight to discussing the right team's positions. One of the key points for them is the monument on the embankment. The team on the right can get to it faster than their opponents and catch their tanks before they spread. It's also a great firing point. You can control the embankment, the beach, the triangle square from the enemy's side, and, if your tank's elevation angles are good enough, even the approach from point A. And while we're holding so many approaches, you're pretty safe yourself, since you can easily hide from enemy fire in case of danger. Another important place on this map is the central point. The fastest way to get to it is to follow the embankment to the diagonal alley leading to the center of the town. This position offers a few options. First, you can sit in the shell crater on the border of the capture area and hide behind the destroyed tank there. This will keep you safe if an enemy shows up coming from the central alley or the triangle square, also giving you an opportunity to cover allies next to the embankment monument. Second, you can capture the central point while hiding behind the church. It'll also give you control over the bigger part of the street that goes south. Our next position is in the middle ring. By rings, we mean the semicircular roads on this map, with the outer ring being the road that limits the town's borders, the middle ring going a little closer to the center of the town, and the inner ring being the road around the main square. So, you need to take the middle ring to stop near the garbage heap next to the exit from the town. This position gives you control over the remaining part of the street, which means that the enemy won't be able to take it and recapture the central point. If you encounter no enemy tanks on the way, rush forward to the point between the inner and the middle ring, since that will strengthen your team's position. The last useful position for the team on the right is their home point, C. This is the highest position on the map, a vantage point that gives you a view over the city and lots of control. From there, you'll be able to see any enemy around the monument and the outer ring. Some enemies can decide to go around this point via the lower part of the map, though. Always be aware of your surroundings, or you might become easy prey. Now, let's see what the left team can do. The monument is important for them too, although it might be harder to reach. If you're lucky, though, you'll get just as much control as the right team. The beach, the embankment, the market, the central street, and even the vantage point next to C. If you don't get an opportunity to take over the monument position, you can sit on the sandy slope next to the bunker and prevent the enemy from leaving point B safely. If you feel adventurous in that battle, you can take a risk and go around the monument under the embankment to surprise the enemy from the rear. Our next position is in the middle ring. If your tank is fast enough, it's worth spending some time on the triangle square. There's a high chance of spotting an enemy vehicle trying to get to the monument. Next, go along the middle ring until you see someone hiding behind the aforementioned garbage heap. The tactics here mirror the opposing team. Don't let the enemy take the central street, and take it yourself as soon as you can. The third position for the team on the left is next to a house on the border of the town. It's the one with the left part partially collapsed, which makes it for a great cover for most tanks, since it only leaves the turret visible. Sitting right behind it, you can stop any enemy movement on the outer ring and control the approach from the inner ring to the central street. You can also control the approach to point C from here. Another important route on this map goes along its lower part towards the enemy home point. You'll be hidden behind the landscape most of the time, which can grant you the element of surprise. When you capture point C, help your team get control over the monument area first, and only then defend the slope from the next enemy wave. Well, looks like that's it for the tactics we wanted to share with you today. It's time to answer some of your questions. The first question was sent by a player called SuperX7. Do you have any tips for the Junkers 87 G1 or G2? Hi SuperX7. These planes are the best suitable for mixed battles. Their 37mm guns can pierce up to 100mm of armor from half a kilometer away, which is enough to destroy any enemy tank at BR 2.7, even from the front. When you attack ground targets, keep your speed high to make it harder for the enemy to hit you. But when you see an enemy fighter in the sky, fly away and wait for your allies to deal with it. N. Lemma asks, how do you get additional information in air-realistic battles like ammo count and engine and oil temp without having to overheat your engine first? Hello Lemma. You can turn these indicators on if you go to Options, Main Parameters, Battle Interface Settings, and toggle Fuel, Ammo, and Temperature Indication there. Another question comes from Heatseeker. Why do AIM-7 Sparrows sometimes not track and self-destruct? Hi there. The Sparrow missiles are guided by a radio signal reflected from the target, so they need a permanent highlight with the plane's onboard radar. As soon as the missile loses its target, it self-destructs. This can happen if the target goes outside your radar's range, or if it's lower than you, since it will naturally hide in the signals reflected from the ground. Velo the Alpha DK writes, could you tell me what is the better aircraft, P-51H or Spitfire F Mark 24? Hi Velo. Well, both of these machines are many players' favorites. Which one is yours? You can only find out yourself by trying both. And we're happy to tell you about their advantages. The P-51H has great maximum speed, especially at high altitudes, while the Spitfire feels mostly comfortable in dogfights. The American fighter has 6 Browning machine guns with a high accuracy even at long distances, while the British one has 4 20mm guns that destroy anything that flies past them. Both are useful in mixed battles as well, since they can take on enough rockets and bombs to destroy several tanks on each sortie. And the last comment for today was written by Bagas Akhbar. Best advice for playing Russian tank with little to no gun depression? Hi there, Bagas. Okay, the best advice we can give to those who drive a vehicle with poor elevation angles is to choose the flattest part of the map, of course. But even then, it's easy to find yourself in a situation where a little bit of gun depression would have ensured the destruction of the enemy. However, there's a little trick you could use, and it's quite simple. You can increase your gun depression by speeding up a little bit and then slamming on the brakes. This will bring the nose of your tank down and give you a fraction of a second to shoot lower than you normally could. That's it for today. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment, and the next episode will premiere the following Sunday at 4 p.m. GMT or noon Eastern Time. Come on, guys, subscribe and click the bell if you don't want to miss our next videos, because they get better and better. Don't forget to leave a like, craft that Merkava, share your thoughts and comments, and see you in a mere 7 days.